dig up that old fossil.
Going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
That's no move.
We're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
Welcome to the Star Wars Nerds podcast. I'm Dan Vadewalker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
And it's been quite a while since our last Star Wars Nerds post. Some of these listeners may be surprised to see that Star Wars Nerds logo pop up in their podcast, but you know, it's been a combination of COVID-19 stuff and, of course, technical difficulties as we continue to podcast from home. We have done a number of Media Nerds episodes like this remotely. But this is the first Star Wars Nerds one we've done because last week we tried it and the audio didn't work out so well, so we never posted it. But yeah, and to be honest, there hasn't been a ton of Star Wars news until this week, until May the 4th. And holy crap, did a lot of Star Wars news come out of that day. It's like they were saving it all up for that day.
It's endless now. And in addition to new content that I've already watched, new content all over Disney Plus. So yeah, lots.
We'll talk about that, I think, as the weeks go on. Today I want to focus on the Clone Wars because that did wrap up on May the 4th. And of course, there were other May the 4th celebrations happening as far as people watching the movies together online and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I did watch the Clone. Now I watched, as per your advice, I only watched the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars. You tweeted at me quite a while ago and said, just start with episode 9 and you'd be good. And you were right.
Nothing to miss. You didn't miss a thing.
Well, now let's quickly recap because this is part of the discussion got lost. You've watched it all. You've watched the entire season of the Clone Wars, the final season. And so give us your thoughts, first of all, on the first 8 episodes of that show.
Well, last week in the Lost episode, we talked about how I was not a fan of those episodes. And a lot of the other Star Wars podcasts were gushing over them at the time when they came out, but I couldn't help but notice after the last 4 came out, they started being more critical about the first 8, because then there was something good to compare it to. And I think most people have kind of come around to the idea, yeah, those first 8, okay, great, they're probably good for kids. But the last 4, those are really the ones that tie into the motion pictures and therefore are more important to watch.
Yeah, and but there's really kind of 3 arcs in this season. A season of 12 episodes. You have the Bad Batch run, which was previously released as animatics because they never thought they'd get the chance to finish them, and now they have. So was that 4 or 5 episodes that first?
4.
It was 4 episodes, and the next 4 episodes was another arc around Ahsoka and what they call it, the Spice Girls.
The Spice Girls.
Spice Girls, because it's Ahsoka and a bunch of female Mandalorians, and they have to go to Kessel for some spice or something like that.
No, it's not female Mandalorians.
Well, the one is.
No, we're talking about Ahsoka goes to the Spice Girls run a junk shop, and they bicker. They're sisters who bicker. And while they're bickering, one of them makes the stupid decision to dump the spice. There's some Mandalorians involved along the way, but thereby setting the stage for 4 really episodes nobody ever needed to see.
Well, so what happens now at the beginning of episode 9, and obviously we're going to talk spoilers here, so you haven't seen. So if to anybody, we'll leave it here. Like if you haven't seen it yet, watch the 4 episodes. Watch 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that's all you need from this season. But when we start episode 9, Ahsoka is with a female Mandalorian. I didn't catch her name. How does she get into contact with that person?
She is being observed by them in the earlier episodes. But it's not... And once again, we're talking about a cartoon that's for kids. So it's not... And even in the last 4 episodes, they don't go too deep into what's happening. There's some shout outs to what's going on in Revenge of the Sith, but in the prior episodes, it's all pretty subtle, and I don't even think it's something that we need to dig that deep into because it doesn't really, there is no, to my recollection, there is no great moment where this all leads to what happens in episode 9. There really isn't. It's just.
I would say there's one moment. The Order 66 part was pretty cool.
No, but I mean before that, prior to the episode 9
I see.
starting.
Before that arc, yeah.
I can't tell you that I recall any big grand moment where I was like, oh God, this is going to be great in the last 4. It's too loosey goosey in the prior 8 ones.
So it's like they always had this plan for the last 4, and they just made these other episodes to fill it out, and they really didn't have anything to do with anything else, because we don't see the Bad Batch in those final 4 episodes. We don't see the Spice Girls in those final 4 episodes. So what's the point of having them, I guess?
No,
but I will say,
yeah, but I think they had already been under some level of production. I think
that's right.
Yeah, no, that's probably, they were probably just kicking around out there. And once again, like last week in our Lost episode, I said, like, I don't begrudge anybody enjoying those, and particularly kids probably would get a kick out of them. It's almost like a kid morality tale about don't make bad decisions. Like there's a little bit of that.
Don't dump the spice.
Don't dump the spice.
Hey, even I get bored sometimes.
One of the dumbest moves ever by any Star Wars character, where you're just like, come on, they're just bickering. It doesn't even happen because of any good reason. So now we have 4 episodes where they're in jail and out of jail and back into jail. And escaping from the jail.
It's like that season of Lost where they were stuck in the polar bear cages for like 5 episodes.
Right. Very similar.
Like I will say, these 4 episodes that I did watch, again, you're right. They feel very different. The opening is different. They have this weird. It's the Star Wars font, but it's a different color, it's green, and then it's red, which is weird because we only ever see it in that blue. But they say, Lucasfilm limited production, and then it says. It says part 1, 2, 3, 4 for the different chapters of this. Now, I feel like they could just combine these 4 episodes into a movie if they wanted to. Like they really wanted to kind of make it just one movie to kind of parallel the timeline of Revenge of the Sith. And yeah, you're absolutely right about the animation. The music is much, much better.
It's all better.
The pacing is much better. There's a part in this one of the episodes. So spoiler alert, it involves Darth Maul. Big time involves Darth Maul. They have to get the army. Ahsoka goes to ask Anakin and Obi-Wan for some soldiers, some clone troopers to help go after Maul, who's on Mandalore. Who's like, okay, so all those Mandalorians, are they not in it previously? Like, are those from a previous episode or something like that?
Well, the Mandalorians take place throughout. It's all throughout the Clone Wars series. Okay, so there are.
Are these characters we know from earlier on?
Yeah.
Okay, because they had to kind of bring these people in at some point. Because you have all these different Mandalorians with this cool different armor and stuff, and they've got all.
While we're on the topic, there's not that many Mandalorians, considering it's the Siege of Mandalore.
Right.
I expected to see thousands of Mandalorians, and really there's a handful. And there's good ones, and there's ones loyal to Darth Maul.
Conveniently color-coded so we don't confuse them.
Very nice of them to do that.
The bad guys are in red, the good guys are blue. So Ahsoka goes to Anakin and Obi-Wan to ask for help. They say no because they actually have to go off to fight Dooku, who's attacked Coruscant, and that's the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. Right, that leads directly into that scene. But Anakin finds a loophole and gives her Rex and an army of clone troopers so she can go after Maul on Mandalore. Which I like that idea, but I was a little bit disappointed in their portrayal of Anakin in this episode. I feel like one thing the Clone Wars should do is help reinforce the idea that Anakin is turning to the dark side. And I don't see any evidence of that here, because this is fairly close to when it happens. This is within, a couple days, couple weeks. I'm not sure the timeline exactly, but it's fairly close to when he's actually going to turn. So...
Oh, it's during. It's during.
Yeah.
For sure.
When we see Anakin at the beginning of that first episode, he's like, oh, good to see you, Ahsoka. I kept your lightsabers. Hey, how's it going? He's all very nice, and no hint at all that he's like... mad at people or angry or whatever. Like he's starting to hate the universe. First he just hated sand. Now he's supposed to hate everybody and turn to the dark side. But I didn't see any of that in that. There was a nice line from Obi-Wan where he says, I already killed Maul once, I can't remember the rest of the line, but it was funny. So then she goes off, and that's pretty much the last we see of Anakin and Obi-Wan, although we do see Obi-Wan as a hologram. Was it Obi-Wan that we see, or is that not? Do we not see him? Is it Mace Windu and Yoda and the Jedi Council people?
I think we do, don't we?
We might see Anakin. We might see Obi-Wan at some point. She's trying to get a hold of him,
right?
And tell him that Maul had a vision of him, so Maul sees what's coming, kind of. And then that whole sets up this whole thing between Ahsoka and Maul, and that kind of what it's doing is setting up the later confrontation to come in Rebels.
Yeah.
Which now I want to rewatch that whole sequence in Rebels to see how that plays out because I don't really remember it very well. But
and also Solo.
Also Solo, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. We see the beginnings of Maul wanting to start that crime syndicate. And, he's like, we have to live in the chaos. We have to benefit from the chaos and all that other stuff. So I guess, I love Maul. I love that he's in this. But I was hoping they would tie it in more to episode 3 than they did.
Well, but part of me, I sort of expected them to do what they did, which is you can't in a kid's cartoon show Anakin slaying children.
Well, you can show heads being popped off of clone troopers because they show that in this.
You can show episodes. That. You could show that. You could also show droid abuse, of course.
Oh man! Oh,
how about
droids.
that? I know.
So sad about
that. Yeah, that was terrible. Just shoot them in a pit.
Come on.
Yeah.
So anyway, then they go off to Mandalore, and then we have that's where we see all these Mandalorian characters that had previously been part of the series at some point. They go hunting for Maul. They find him. He tries to convince. He just wants an apprentice. It's like all Maul wants is an apprentice. It's like he wants Ahsoka to be his apprentice. He wants what's his name in Rebels to be his apprentice. Ezra. He tried to get Ezra to be his apprentice. Like that's just all he wants. Just wants an apprentice. He wants to be needed. Anyway, so then they chase him around in there. There's a nice lightsaber battle between Ahsoka and Maul. That was a fun scene.
Oh yeah, well done.
Oh, I remembered what I was gonna say. Okay, and then so they capture him, and there's a sequence when they're bringing him back onto their Star Destroyer, and it's just like amazing music. They've got him in this weird kind of box. I don't know what it is. They don't really tell you. They say, "Oh, I thought these were outlawed." It's some kind of way of keeping him in there. And there's just a sequence of them bringing him in. It's very, very deliberately paced, slowly, but the music is really good, and the animation. I just love that sequence, and that's something that I don't think they would take time for in a normal episode of the Clone Wars. I just really like that. I know that some people might think it was dragged out a bit too long, but I just kind of like them taking the time to show Darth Maul being brought in, kind of thing.
Like Hannibal Lecter.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I thought
so.
I thought that was pretty good. I only have one complaint kind of Darth Maul, and that is, the animation's great, and I like it. I like the storyline for him too. I thought that was pretty good. The one thing that I was like, I don't know, maybe not, but the fact that he goes from saying virtually nothing in the Phantom Menace to just being a chatty Cathy.
Oh yeah,
just like he won't shut up.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he says he gives away, like, for a guy who barely said boo originally, the guy gives away a hell of a lot about his plans, about what he wants to happen, about what is happening.
Yeah.
About so that was the one thing where it was like, I don't know. Maybe he's been through a lot, so he doesn't have to be silent the whole time. But
remind me, did they ever explain how he survived the fall on Naboo?
Well, he goes insane and he's got the spider legs at a certain point, and I'm trying to remember how they explained it. I don't know if they did. I don't know if we just start into the spider.
Well, I remember we found him. They found him on that garbage planet or whatever, and he was crazy, and his horns were super long, which tells us that he needs the species needs haircuts as well, just like me.
They do
right now. I've got my appointment booked for Friday, by the way, to go and get.
Oh, mine's next week, but it still looks like I don't have any hair.
So anyway, I'm gonna have to go back and look that up because I don't know if they actually explained, because he was pretty much just cut in half and fell down that pit. So you'd think that he was dead, but they somehow figured out a way to bring him back. It's good. I'm glad they brought him back, but it would have been nice to bring him back in the prequels. Well, exactly.
If we were gonna do it.
Well, and that's I saw one piece I saw in the last couple of days was about how, and I think you may have said this, the Clone Wars redeems the prequel trilogy in a way, and I think that that's one way in which they try to do that by bringing back Darth Maul, who was the best villain to come out of that prequel trilogy. They killed him off too soon. And then having him be kind of the big bad at the end of this series. Now, for me, the weird part is that it does take such a sharp turn into Ahsoka. and her thing. They don't really, because we know how it ends with Anakin and Obi-Wan, but I just wish we would have had her checking in more often with them, or actually having a conversation with Anakin before he turns to Darth Vader, or even after he turns to Darth Vader, right? There's got to be something in there I think they could have done to make it a stronger connection to those episode 3 kind of touchstones. One scene I thought in particular was really weird was like when you see after they've got all this and they're kind of on their way back, and you see this kind of conversation with Yoda, Mace Windu, and the guy with the weird shaped head, and they're all on hologram form talking to each other. And I'm like, what? Why aren't we looking at this from like a normal? Like why? Like usually when you see a hologram conversation, at least one person is real, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't they're all holograms. I'm like, what's going on here? And then we see Ahsoka walk in. I'm like, oh, okay. So they have like a conference call going on. It's like Zoom. It's like this, right? So it's like if we were in a conference call and I walked up and left the room and then just had a camera still pointed and we just recorded that side of the conversation. So then they all tell, and then again we forgot another thing I had forgotten completely about was how Ahsoka left the Jedi Order. So she's no longer technically a Jedi, although she does still use the Force and lightsabers and that kind of stuff. And then they kind of snub her at that point where they're like, this is at the point at which the Jedi Council is having suspicions about Palpatine, but they won't tell her about it because she's not a Jedi. So they kind of cut her out of that. And then, pretty much that brings us to the Order 66, which was the big moment in Revenge of the Sith, and it is a big moment in the series as well. We get to see. Now, I thought that her not being a Jedi was going to be the loophole here. I was expecting that execute Order 66. I didn't think any of those clone troopers were going to go after her because she's not a Jedi, right? Now, something that Rex tries to explain later on, but they don't buy it.
Right.
So they all turn, including Rex. They all turn, and immediately, like a snap of a finger, they all start wanting to kill her. And it's because of these chips that they had implanted.
Which, as it turns out, if you can remove the chip, then you can solve the problem.
Did they remove the chip from Rex?
Well, when they put him on that scanning machine.
Yeah, but how did they get the chip out of there? Like they didn't. I don't think they had. Didn't seem like they had time for any kind of like brain surgery or anything like that.
Well, they couldn't show it, but he went in there and
he goes in there. Okay, so he goes
and
in
it's
there,
that simple, and there wasn't even a scar.
Well, I think he had a Band-Aid on his head later on.
Did they? I don't remember.
But so I'm getting ahead of myself. So Rex does hesitate a bit. Like you see his hands shaking and he drops the helmet, and he seems like he is trying to resist it a little bit. And as it turns out, he had filed a report earlier saying that these chips might not be for what they're saying it's for. It might be for something else. So he already had an idea of what might come, although not specifically the Order 66. So then she separates. All the other clones come after him. She knocks out. She gets the droids. She gets help from the droids. She lets out Maul. I was kind of disappointed that Maul wasn't able to escape from that thing himself. I kind of wanted to see him break out of that thing. Like she just comes and lets him out. I mean, that's kind of anticlimactic. And then just said, go cause chaos. Like, I don't know if she needed to do that necessarily.
He could have very well just as killed her to create chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he could have killed it. Like I thought that was a little bit
trusting of her.
Yeah, well,
right?
I mean, we need him to help us get out, and it would have been more realistic that they team up to get out, as opposed to diversion.
Yes,
which I didn't quite buy that, but okay.
No, yeah, I agree. And then but she seems to be the key to like holding up the clone troopers seems to be just shutting the doors at the right times, and they shut all the doors, and so they have to take time to either cut their way through with a cutting torch or use the manual. Do you see that little manual tool that one trooper has? He goes to the access, like the thing that R2-D2 uses to turn to access the computer. He looks like he's got a manual one of those things, and he's like turning it to try and unlock the door. I'm like, that's kind of neat. I kind of like that idea of like a manual tool to do that, something the droid usually does.
Right.
They can do without a droid. So she gets the droids to go help her, grab Rex, take him to the med bay. First of all, we have the moment where they find the chip, and she quotes from Rogue One of all movies. That was a surprise. The Force with me. What is it? The Force is with me, and I'm with the Force, or whatever it is.
I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me.
Yeah,
Is
something
that
like that. I don't remember what it is. Oh man,
Yeah.
we're awful. We're awful Star Wars fans.
Well, I mean,
but
the problem is the insane amount of content that we have consumed Star Wars wise.
it's all blurring together.
It is. It is a big
Yeah.
blur. There's so much of it at this point.
Now, what? Now, is that to? Were you led to believe that she is a part of that religion now? That those guys were part of
the Journal of the Wills guys.
Yeah, those guys, those religious guys. Yeah. Is that what she is now?
You got me. To me, I just thought it's probably just a motto that, or what is it? A creed?
A mantra?
A mantra.
Like something
something like that. And I don't know. Maybe it's more widely known than what we think. We've only seen it in Rogue One, but it's a kind of thing that. Maybe it's like saying your prayers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But we've only ever heard it before from what's his face from
Chirrut Imwe.
Yeah, from Rogue One, who is him and that other guy. Baze they're part of that religion. They're not Jedi, but they fight like he uses the Force obviously because he's blind, and she does it in the same way. But anyway, because she does that chant and the kind of meditation, she's able to help the computer find the chip somehow. I don't know how that works, but
but they find the video explaining we have a chip in our head. So there's that. There's a bunch of.
I see again. It's a misleading thing because I thought she was doing that in order to like wipe the chip or disable it or just bring him back with the Force. Not to help the computer locate the chip so they can take it out. So what's the point of even doing that? Why not just have the computer locate the chip so they can take it out, right?
Yeah.
There didn't seem to be much purpose to that whole thing, other than to get her to say that line.
Well, then the question would be, and that's pretty important information to know, that if you remove the chip, you can cure the clone.
Right. Well, and now we know how all those clones that ended up in Rebels, like Rex and all those other guys, we know now what happened. Rex is the first one. She cured Rex, and he probably tracked down the other guys and removed their chips as well. So that's pretty clear that's how that ended up. But I just think they had him under the knife for long enough to get that thing out of him. Because like as he's being put into that, the CT scan unit, the door is starting to come up and she's like fighting them off, and then all of a sudden he's awake and shooting the other guys. So it just seemed to happen really, really quickly in my mind. Then they have to get off the ship, and that's when there's kind of the big confrontation at the end with all the clone troopers. They all gather in the hangar. Again, all very visually spectacular. We see this ship, like that shot where the ship comes out of hyperspace because of course Maul does go cause chaos. He wrecks the hyperdrive, which in a spectacular fashion. That's awesome. Oh, and the freaking scene, we got the Darth Vader scene with Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Going down the hallway and just like fleeing clone troopers all over the place. That's the same thing as Darth Vader in Rogue One. Like he's just kicking all their asses with no lightsaber.
That scene should be in Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
It should be. Right. They should have brought him back in the prequels because it would have been big and it would have been suited to and it takes place at the same time now, so you could have easily done it. It should have been in there. I
guess maybe the special effects weren't good enough to get him to do that kind of stuff in the prequels.
I think they were.
I don't know.
If you look at the first lightsaber battle in Episode 1, you could have.
That's good. That's true. That's very good.
Yeah.
So, but that was a great scene when he's just kicking ass and like just holding up these doors to block the blasters and cutting off heads of clone troopers, cutting off arms of clone troopers. He cuts off the guy's arm in the door and then takes his communicator so he can hear what they're doing. So he's doing that stuff. He takes them out of hyperspace. It comes out of hyperspace with all this smoke trailing off it. That was a really cool shot of that. Just all the smoke coming out of it. And then they start going down onto this planet. Do we know what planet that is? Was that ever said?
No, I don't think we know. It looked like Hoth.
At the end,
snow on it.
Hoth. But there wasn't not snow on it when they crashed. And then they got.
Don't forget, there's one other plot point that I wanted to mention. One that didn't ring true. I was with Rex on this. I don't want to hurt the clones.
And Rex is like, they don't care.
They don't care. They want to kill you.
And by
Yeah.
the way, that stun gun is very effective. Why don't they just always use that? Like,
Yes.
why kill anybody in Star Wars?
Yeah.
Because the stun gun works. I thought it was because a stun couldn't be aimed. Like, I was always under the impression when we see Princess Leia get stunned in the first film, it's like this big wide beam of like, and it just kind of, you can't really aim it. You just kind of cast a wide stun beam. That's why I thought they don't use them. But he's got this little kind of concentrated stun beam that's not very, very wide at all. It's just like it just basically stuns everybody. So then they come to the hangar, and then all the clone troopers pop out there. They all line up ready to take him on, led by Jesse, who is one of the other
Jesse, the worst name in Star Wars.
Well, what about Cody? Like, come on.
Yeah.
There's some of these names are not great.
Rex isn't really a great name either.
No, it's not. None of them have great names. Yeah, none of them have great names. But they give them themselves their own names, right?
Is that how it works?
I don't know. I don't know how it works.
I can't remember.
I think they do. I think if you remember back to the first episode of the Clone Wars, they really, like, after they become soldiers, they really try to individualize themselves a little bit. They give themselves different haircuts and tattoos, and they bleach their hair blonde like Rex does. They do all kinds of different things to make themselves different, even though they're all clones of the same person. So then then the droids, they have come up with this brilliant idea. They stall for some reason. I don't know why they didn't just send the droids out there and drop the floor out. Why do they need that stalling tactic? Like, why are they sitting there? Oh, she's not really a Jedi, guys, come on. And then Jesse's like, what? You're violating the order. And there's this whole back and forth. And that's just to buy the droids time to drop those big panels of flooring out from under them. So that half the troopers get dropped down into the basement. And then
but by the way, the ship is gonna crash anyway, so
exactly,
I don't want to hurt them. You know? Like, they're all dead.
They're all at the end. They're all dead. They are.
So
they dig graves for every single one of them at the end.
So that was for nothing. I just want to protect them.
And I did appreciate the irony of these soldiers that have Ahsoka's kind of face on their helmet, this whole kind of platoon that painted their helmets to honor her, then hunting her down. I thought that was really interesting that they kind of show that. And that's like all the helmets that they bury at the end that they have sticking on the grave markers are all those helmets that are painted. But yeah, they could have just waited it out. Like, the way these guys get off this ship when it's crashing, I mean, really, they could have just waited it just hop. Like, that's what Ahsoka does. She basically just hops from piece of wreckage to piece of wreckage, the same as she did earlier in the arc. She does that same thing when they're going down Mandalore, which was very cool. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not cool, but it's also very convenient. Yeah. And so Rex gets in a Y wing and manages to pick her up and get her out of there. And there was not much suspense in that scene because she's having a hard time holding on. She's having a hard time getting in there, but we know she lives, so there's no real tension in that scene, although they tried to give you tension. But I mean, we know that she comes back later on. So I don't know. It's still like, it was an interesting way to end it. And of course, the final scene, she leaves her. They bury all the clone troopers. She leaves her lightsaber behind. One of them, I think. I don't know. She has two lightsabers, but she only leaves one. I don't know. And then we cut to however many years later. It's clearly the Empire. It's the stormtroopers we know from the original trilogy. It's the probe droids. It does look like Hoth, obviously, because there's probe droids. And then we have to see the snow troopers and all that. And Darth Vader comes up to the wreckage of that ship and picks up the lightsaber and turns it on. And we kind of see this moment where he's like looking at the lightsaber, which I liked. I thought that was a really cool final shot. And actually, I really like the final shot of like the reflection of him in the helmet at the end, because it's kind of showing like this is where he was and now this is where he ended up, kind of a thing. So I like that idea. But again, I really wish they had made a stronger tie-in to Ahsoka in this episode, Ahsoka to Anakin, because I think there's a relationship there that they didn't really explore as well as they could have.
Yeah. I thought the last shot was a good shot. And I also thought that like there was subtlety there. Like they resisted the urge to make too many big things happen that should have been in Revenge of the Sith. Like, I thought that was pretty good too. Like, if they went too big, then that would have been the question. Like, why wasn't this?
Well, I guess they had, they felt that this is the best way to tell the story without what do you call it, retroactively changing Revenge of the Sith. And when you told me that these episodes take place alongside Revenge of the Sith, I was excited because I'd seen in like Phineas and Ferb, they did a Star Wars special where the scenes all take place around the original movie, and they did a really good job with it, and it's really funny, and it's much more closely tied into the movie than this was to Revenge of the Sith. So I thought Phineas and Ferb did it better. But they did it for comedic purposes, right? So it's different, and it's not canon. So, and this is canon, so people get upset about stuff that's canon. So, but yeah, it was a really good, I think, final 4 episodes, and it's not really a conclusion to the entire series. I guess the movie is supposed to be the conclusion to the entire series, but it does wrap up some of that stuff from the other parts of the series, right?
Yeah, and it would be cool. I think there's probably already people who've done it or are working on it, but it'd be cool to stitch it into the actual film. And if you like to actually
I'm sure, yeah,
do the master edit.
Yeah, you cut it back and forth. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That would be great.
It could be super cool. And just like we did the hand clap to try to sync our video, sadly, you could actually sync the action based on when Order 66 happens.
You could, yes, that's right.
Before and after.
And I like that it gave us a little more insight into what happened to the clone troopers when Order 66 gets issued, because we don't really see. All we see is they turn around and start shooting the Jedi, and that's really it. I think it's interesting how like Ahsoka really does have a hard time holding off the clones. If she didn't have Rex and the droids, she might not have been able to do it. And maybe if she hadn't let Darth Maul out, I guess we're led to believe that if she hadn't let Darth Maul out, she would have been captured or killed. So it kind of lends more credence to like the idea that yes, the clone troopers are powerful enough to kill all these Jedi. And yeah, some Jedi did get away. We've seen many stories now of Jedi that got away from Order 66, but for the most part, most of them do get killed.
I mean, well, that's the other thing. Like, I don't think it's too far to go to say maybe Mace Windu survived. Maybe.
I don't know. He got flung out of a window, though, didn't he?
Well, Darth Maul got cut in half and thrown down a pipe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, which is worse? They're both, I mean, you can bring back anyone if you really want to. So it wouldn't surprise me. They didn't go that far. They could have gone that far. They could have, like, given us some real crazy stuff in there. But, I think should we ever see Samuel L. Jackson again, it'd be interesting. I think it's possible. Well,
I certainly think that if we do see Mace Windu in any form, it's going to be in animated form. It's not going to be a live action. Like, I don't think we'll see Sam Jackson back.
I think so.
On any of these.
We'll see something.
Like in The Mandalorian or something like that.
Well, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff being developed, as we learned on Star Wars Day, and a lot of the stuff we don't even know when the hell it's taking place on the timeline now. But how about Cassian Andor? You know what I mean? Like, there's all this stuff. There's stuff that happens early on that it's possible. It wouldn't surprise me.
I guess so. If there's anything in that time frame that could bring back, they could really bring back anybody they wanted to at this point.
How far back are we going with Cassian Andor? I'm not even sure.
I don't know. If obviously it takes place before Rogue One, so it's going to go back. Like, Rogue One is 10 years before A New Hope. So
well, no, it goes right into A New Hope.
Oh yeah, sorry, it does go. Sorry, you're right. No, Solo's 10 years before A New Hope. So Rogue One could be anywhere in that time frame. Like, could be alongside Solo. And we could, I remember in a previous episode I said we're not going to see Han Solo on any of this stuff, but we could see what's his face as Han Solo. What's the guy who played Han Solo in the new movie? He could come back and do it. But Donald Glover could be Lando.
We also know Mon Mothma is in the Cassian Andor series because they've cast that actor, the actor who played her in Rogue One.
Okay.
So we know
looks exactly like the original actor.
We know it's Rebellion. It's Rebellion era. He's already teamed up with K2SO, I think, unless that's the story. We know K2SO's
no, I think
in it.
He's in it too. And we also know that Ahsoka, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but Ahsoka Tano has been cast in The Mandalorian.
Well, so it appears. I don't think there's been any official anything.
Oh, no? Still? Oh,
no,
I thought that was
I think it's widely reported and hoped for, and probably it's true, but I don't think Lucasfilm has confirmed that. Or Disney. I don't think anybody's confirmed that.
Oh, Anyway, so it was a good last few episodes. And I was really happy that I watched those. At some point, I will probably watch those other episodes, but not anytime soon. There's too much other stuff to watch. What was this thing from William Shatner you sent me?
Oh, so this morning. And by the way, there's so much other stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Did you on Star Wars Day? By the way, did you watch Star Wars? Did you watch it again, or did you? What did you do? Did you do any Star Wars related?
I did not. No, I was busy. I played a little bit of Lego Star Wars video games with my kids, and that was pretty much it. I had a very busy day Monday. I was marking like crazy, so I did not do any of that stuff.
See, I did some. And have you watched the Mandalorian documentary series?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
I will. Well, I'll watch
There's
that.
only
We'll talk
one
about
episode.
it in a future episode.
Only one
Okay.
episode at a time.
Oh, so it's coming on weekly. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that when it's all done.
Yeah, so anyway, I was going to say, so today, William Shatner, friend of Star Wars, but not from Star
Rolling my eyes.
He tweeted captain's log, star date, and then the date, and two police police cars in Lethbridge, Alberta, stopped a woman dressed in stormtrooper cosplay, made her get down on her knees, took the fake gun away from her, and she's sobbing. It's like the usual horrible thing, and then arrested her for just being in cosplay on Star Wars Day. So
yeah, I mean, there's two sides to this, right? Like, I see that this kind of stuff does happen all the time, and as somebody like we had people call the police. I believe it was the first year Fan Quest.
What?
Because they saw somebody dressed up. I believe it was the Master Chief. I think they were dressed up as the Master Chief from Halo, which looks pretty. I mean, it's not Star Wars, but it looks like a battle armor kind of stuff. So, sorry, 1 second here. So I get that. I get that some police, might not be familiar, but and they also had that shooting in Nova Scotia a few weeks ago. So some police might be on edge because of that. Like, there's two sides to this. I think that I don't think William Shatner does not need to weigh in on it, regardless of what's going on here.
Well, he's
Nobody
Canadian.
cares what William Shatner.
He's Canadian.
Come on, he's from Montreal. He's not from freaking Alberta. Like, come on.
When did you become the separatist?
I'm not a separatist. I'm just not a William Shatnerist. He's not lived in Canada for many, many, many years, so I have no problem criticizing William Shatner.
All I'd say is if it's it's around Star Wars Day. And even if you don't, my first thought...
I think a lot of people might not know that.
Still,
right?
My first thought seeing someone dressed as a stormtrooper isn't, they're just about to go murder some people. I don't think the cops need need two squad cars with guns drawn. Is that what we need?
Yeah, there's a better way to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
You talk to the
right.
person first. You ask them what they're doing. You can't talk to them, not just assume everything, right? Like, I could see how somebody might think somebody in cosplay would be doing that. Sorry, I don't know the details, or if you said this already. Where was she going?
If you watch the video, you'll see. Well, it's unknown. Like, all we have is the video showing her being arrested, and she's a young woman dressed like a stormtrooper. It does not look. It does not look. And in fact, whoever shot the video, they come upon the scene. But
okay, so we don't know where she was going, because there's no conventions happening right now. There are no, like, the places to dress up are conventions and other places where people understand what's going on. If she's just dressed up as a stormtrooper walking down the street, I would have an issue with that. I wouldn't go as crazy as they did, but I would have an issue with her doing that.
Hey, maybe she's a member of the 501st and they were going to the children's hospital. Would that change your view?
Then put your costume on when you get there. You know what I mean? You don't need to be wearing that walking down the street. Now, speaking of which,
then what should we do on Halloween then? Should we just?
Well, that's a different story. Halloween is understood that you dress up. I saw a post from the 501st that showed one of their members was a nurse, and it was like they've been doing this thing where they've been posting about all the nurses that are part of the 501st who also cosplay. And this person was amazing. Like, she did this amazing Mara Jade cosplay, and then she was a nurse. Like, her full-time job is a nurse who's been working on the front lines of COVID-19. So it was a great little post kind of honoring those who are, the real heroes, as they say. The 501st is a great organization. I've seen lots of great posts about people recording videos in superhero costumes to cheer up kids and that kind of stuff, which is great. It's just people are so paranoid right now. It's not a great time to shout your fandom from the rooftops in real life. do it on the internet, but don't do it out in the streets because people will get freaked out.
It might bring people joy. How about that?
No,
How about the
no.
idea?
If you want to bring people joy, don't dress up as a stormtrooper. Dress as a Jedi or something good. Nobody wants to see a stormtrooper.
You have very defined views on cosplay that I was unaware of until
No, I like
conversation.
cosplay. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that. I think that the massive majority of people in the world do not know what cosplay is still, and they don't understand it, and they get scared and confused at some of this stuff. So I like cosplay, but there's a time and a place for it.
So if the police saw like a poison ivy with big boobies walking down the street.
Well, that's a whole other thing. Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen some pretty revealing costumes at cons.
It's the
that's
armor.
A whole other...
It's the armor that would worry the police.
That's
as
part of it.
opposed
Yeah,
to-
they think that it's a real armor, but not only that, but they just think that the person isn't all there. Or they think the person is, maybe they're. I don't know. You don't know. But again, I said the police reaction was over the top. They shouldn't have done all that. But at the same time, she shouldn't have been doing that either.
I'm just suggesting
take.
I'm just suggesting that I think the police would have preferential treatment for big booby cosplay.
Okay.
I'll bet you they will. I bet you they'd give
Probably.
you a ride if you had big booby cosplay.
Probably.
Hey,
Yeah, you
where's
got
the
it.
Comic-Con going on? Get in. Let's go for a ride. I just think there's a double standard that I'm trying to point out here.
I see what you're saying. All right. So what else did you see as far as the May the 4th stuff? Now we'll talk about obviously there's a big news. Taika Waititi is directing a Star Wars movie. We don't really know anything else about it at this point, so we'll probably talk about that more as details come out. But people are excited, right?
Oh, my God, yeah.
He's great. He's a great director. All his movies have been excellent. So there's no reason not to be excited about that. We have no idea what it could be.
I should also say that in the first, which you haven't watched yet, this is no spoiler, but the first Mandalorian documentary episode that's up is the directors sitting around. And it's about directing. And they all pretty much say, like, the big guy coming into the series was Mr. Waititi because he had just come off Thor. And was much more familiar with the effects and things like that than the rest of them were. And
Although, to be fair, Favreau's done about a bit of that as well.
Well, Favreau stays a little humble and quiet on the first episode.
Oh, does he? Okay.
He's like the old Darth Maul. He's not as a chatty Cathy as he is on his own shows. He actually lets the other directors do more talking. But it's cool because they go through each director and sort of have each one talk about the episode they directed, which is pretty cool the way they do it, actually. And it does make you more excited for a movie directed by one of them, that's for sure, where you sort of see the discussion. So, yeah, I think that's very exciting news. But so I watched that. So I watched that. I watched Star Wars. I watched Empire Strikes Back. And I caught up. I watched one more time Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, okay. Well, don't say anything. We're going to save our thoughts on that for a future episode, and I will also watch it again before we watch it together. We'll do a watch together thing as well. Sometime in the next little while.
I have a weird take on it now that I've seen it a second time, but I look forward to having that discussion with you because there's much there. Once again, that's the film that it will never go away. I think in terms of discussing what goes right and what goes wrong in that film. Yeah. And some of the answers are a little nebulous, I think. I think it's not as clear-cut as I thought it was when we were talking about it.
That's a fair thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? Did you just follow along with any of the Twitter stuff that was happening or any of that stuff?
Yeah, it was a bit of a bust, to tell you the truth, the Twitter stuff. Like, the announcements coming from Star Wars were really exciting that day.
Yeah.
But the discussion on New York Comic Con, it was okay, but the problem was, you're watching the movie on one hand, and then you've got people of all kinds weighing in, and it gets a little, you know what it's like. You have 10-year-olds and you have 50-year-olds and you have, and then you got people posting,
I don't know why anybody's letting their 10-year-old go on Twitter. That seems like a bad idea.
GIFs and, memes and you put it all together, and by the end you're like, shut up.
I feel like there would be too many people on at the same time talking about it to make it good. Like, I used to do this quite often with Mad Men, back when Mad Men was still airing, and I would watch it live on Sunday nights and tweet about it. And I've done it with Saturday Night Live as well, but I'm watching it live. And there's not as many people on with that kind of stuff because they're all kind of like, people are just doing it for the sake of doing it. But when it's organized and there's a big organization saying, come on Twitter right now, watch it all together and let's talk about it, It just seems like there'd be way too many people in order to like you wouldn't be able to have a good conversation.
Right. Yeah, and
You know?
and there was a little bit of that. And actually, I thought New York Comic Con didn't tweet as much as I thought it would.
Oh, okay.
Like
Interesting.
they was fine. They had some general observations and some, some decent questions and things like that. But I was sort of expecting a more, particularly coming from that organization, a more like really detailed. Maybe you've never noticed this, or maybe you've never noticed that. Like, but there,
Like pop-up video, right? Like let's
Yeah.
have some little facts, some fun facts about Star Wars that we don't know yet.
Yeah, it was a little
That'd be
more
fun.
broad in terms of what they tweeted than sort of what I was expecting. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's sort of the kind of audience that they're talking
Yeah.
to. But it was a good excuse to go back and watch. Hey, the first two movies are fantastic. Every time I watch them, you're like, oh man.
And the third movie.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Return
Well,
of the
I didn't
Jedi.
watch it though. I didn't
Oh.
watch that one, so that's why I'm
Okay.
a little.
I see.
I'm not weighing.
Oh,
in
they
on
only watch those two movies. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So
Okay.
I watched the first two, so 4 and 5, episode 4 and 5, and then I watched Rise of Skywalker. So I clearly I'm missing 100 movies now. In there, but yeah, it's impossible. Even watching 2 in a day nearly wiped me out.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not
it's
as easy
hard.
as it used to be. I remember when we used to be able to watch all three of them in one sitting, no problem. Like just, take a break and, between movies, and you have to wait for the one tape to rewind, so you get up and go to the bathroom, make a snack, and then come back and watch the next tape. That's funny, actually. I remember I had a bit of a memory about VHS tapes when I was doing my movie. I watched Braveheart the other day for my movie challenge, and I remember when Braveheart came out on video, it came on 2 tapes. It came on 2 VHS tapes, and lots of movies did it. But anything that was over 2 hours, significantly over 2 hours, was 2. Titanic was 2 tapes.
Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, that was 2 tapes. So anything that was really long, anything that was like 3 hours. Lord of the Rings, those movies were 2 tapes. But I remember the exact point at which I would have to switch the tape in Braveheart. I was watching on Netflix, but there's a point at which the Longshanks is talking, and it's a very quiet moment, and then on the tape it would fade out and you would have to switch it. And I still remember that exact moment because I've seen that movie so many times on VHS. I just couldn't forget that. And what's his name? Is it Patrick McGowan? What's his name?
Yeah, that's an actor, but from what?
Yeah. He's Longshanks in that movie.
In which?
In Braveheart.
I don't remember that. There's a movie I've only seen once.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
my God. Are you kidding me?
No, I've only seen it. I saw it in the theater. That was it. Then
Oh, my goodness.
Then it won an Oscar or 2, I recall.
It won Best Picture that year.
Yeah. You know what? It's another movie like that I've only seen once, and it's a good parallel. Gladiator.
Oh, I've only seen that once.
Yeah, but there's a difference, which is I liked Braveheart, and I did not care for Gladiator, and to this day, I'm like, this is not a good movie. And I you know what? And one of my complaints, hilarious, more than given sort of what we now consider movies to be, my big complaint at the time was I thought it just looked so CGI and phony and lame.
It does, yeah.
That I said that the Millennium Falcon could land on Rome and you would buy it because it looks like Cloud City or something.
See, that's not Braveheart is not that. Braveheart is all practical effects. They didn't have the CGI back then. And Patrick McGowan, who's better known for the TV series The Prisoner, among other roles, he was also notably my other favorite role of his is as the warden in Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood. He was very good in that role, but I totally did not recognize him as Longshanks. He's old. He's old, and he's like, oh man, just amazing. And so again, that's completely off the topic of Star Wars, but I think that's a really good. Yeah, I'm coming up to 99. Like I was going through this slowly. The goal was to have this done before my birthday. I didn't do that, but I'm still going to do it.
Happy birthday!
Oh,
I
thanks.
saw the birthday card on that you posted.
My daughter, my birthday was last week, but my daughter just gave it to me today or yesterday, and I love. You can see it on my Instagram if you haven't seen it. She drew a picture of me holding a lightsaber, and it's like she just does such a great job down to like my arm hair on there and my beard and my hair kind of sticking up and stuff like that. She did a great job with that, so I love that, and that's getting a lot of people are really enjoying that. She's a very good artist.
Yeah.
Shannon is very, very talented. She's gonna if she really pursues it, she could do something with that for sure.
And this is where I have to bring up one of your kids, and I have to ask if it was the same, if it was your daughter or one of your sons. You had a picture at work of yourself that they drew of you farting. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was Jack that drew that.
Okay, that was a while ago. And it was what did it say? Something like,
It said I farted.
It said, so it's you
It said
confessing.
I farted. Yeah.
Now that's you should tweet that because that's funny.
Well, I'll get Jack. How about I get Jack? Okay, so one of their favorite YouTubers, two of their favorite YouTubers who are like animators and artists, they do this thing where they look at their old childhood drawings and then they try to recreate them as adults. So I'm going to get Jack to recreate that. Now that he's older,
yeah.
I'll show him that. It's still there. It's still in my. I'm sure it's still in my desk somewhere.
And there's something else you need to recreate, and that is, and I took a picture of your Facebook screen when it was up, so I have it, and I'm tempted to tweet it every single time there's a grad, and that's the picture of you and your daughter in the grad. You're in a tuxedo, and she's in her little grad outfit. She's just a kid.
Oh no, that was the father-daughter ball.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was a father-daughter ball.
That
yeah.
is the world's greatest photo of anybody. Any dad going with a daughter anywhere.
Oh, she had a great time. That was she's so cute back then.
Oh,
yeah.
it just cracks me up. It's like the best picture. That you guys need to redo that one with you standing on one side.
She's starting to get really self-conscious about that kind of stuff. She does not want me sharing. Shannon.
She doesn't like the old stuff, the little kids.
Well,
stuff?
she doesn't like. Yeah, she doesn't. She is quite the funny child, and a lot of. She still is very funny.
Yeah.
She's got a great sense of humor. But the stuff she did when she was younger, like she had to talk about. So of course we're homeschooling now, right? This is what we're doing, and she had an assignment. She had to read through this. It's so weird because her teacher says we're going to read fables because of copyright issues. I'm like, who is going to be cracking down on copyright issues at this time?
Pardon
so she's
me?
been doing. I don't know.
That's nuts.
She's been reading these old fables like the tortoise and the hare and this kind of stuff, and she's asking the students what's the lesson behind the story and that kind of stuff. So it's like a kind of reading comprehension thing. And so there's the one, I don't remember, it's got a fox in it. I don't remember what it's called, but it's about looking before you leap. Look before you leap is the message, right? So the question is, can you think of a time when you looked before you leaped and what was the result? And Shannon's like, I can't think of any time. And I'm like, how about when you swallowed a nickel and almost choked to death? And she's like, when was that? I said, you were 2 years old and you swallowed a nickel and I was rushing you out to the car to take you to the hospital where you coughed it up. That was scary. She coughed it up and a nickel just went flying out of her mouth.
That is very scary. Oh crap!
Hey, I was choked on a fishbone when I was a kid. It happens. All right,
yeah,
we're way off topic.
Everybody chokes on everything, and that's all you need to know.
It happens. All right, that's gonna do it. We're gonna wrap things up. Before we will talk about Taika Waititi. We will talk about The Rise of Skywalker. We'll talk about all this stuff in the weeks to come. And I will be also posting in the off weeks. Again, I want to keep this feed as active as possible going forward. So even when we're not recording Media Nerds, our other podcast, I'll still post stuff on the Star Wars feed, like old recordings of us watching the movies together. We have all those that have not been posted on the new feed yet, as well as we have interviews with Pablo Hidalgo and other guys as well. I'll repost all that stuff. Because I just want to kind of keep things active on this podcast feed.
Well, moving forward, we definitely have to watch Rise of Skywalker, The Rise of Skywalker. We need to have a detailed discussion about the documentary, about the Mandalorian documentaries, and then there's probably going to be a pile. Oh, the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back is just around the corner. There's so much that's coming.
For sure, it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan.
It always is.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Star Wars Nerds. I'm Dan Vadabonker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the Force hit you on the ass.
TK421, you come. Going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.